marching along towards Christmas. Had a emergency oral surgery.
One. East Hampton Board, you are live.
Great. Thank you, LTV. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Board work session of Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Councilmember Flight,
Present.
Councilmember Lease,
Present.
Councilmember Rogers,
Present.
Councilmember Calder Piedmont,
Present.
Supervisor Brooke Gonzalez.
Present. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this morning, we opened with public comment. We ask you to please kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. And then we have 4 topics for today. CPF Water Quality RFA Grant Program, Proposed Modifications to Septic Funding Guide by Melissa McCarron in Natural Resources. Melissa will also be presenting the Town of East Hampton Water Quality Improvement Program overview. That'll be followed by a discussion about modifications that we're making to the requirements for ADUs presented by our Deputy Town Attorney, Brittany Toledano, and followed by a discussion of the revised affordable multiple residence legislation, which we had already gone to public hearing on. We needed to make some changes, and Brittany and Eric Shantz will be discussing that. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and then we have a few resolutions. And I'd like to say, want to thank Montauk Library. This is our last meeting here for the year. We'll be back in January, but they've always been so accommodating here, and we're very grateful. Okay, so now we're going to have the folks that have signed up to talk. First up is Doreen Nichols. Welcome, Doreen.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Doreen Nichols, and I'm here to speak about 152 3 Mile Harbor Road.
Could you just make sure you're talking into the mic? If you get it a little bit closer, I appreciate that. We want to make sure that LTV can pick it up.
Okay, no problem. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Doreen Nichols. I'm from Waynescott. I'm here wanting to talk about 152 3 Mile Harbor Road, the condominium complex for the proposed 79 units on 7 acres. Attempting to change zoning on any particular slice of East Hampton land is an affront to all local residents whose families have toiled away generation after generation to make East Hampton what it is. This 10th generation neighboring tricentennial working farm is the last vestige of what is right about living in East Hampton and caring for the East Hampton land. They've held on and gotten through by hard work and grit through good times and bad, and the town is now about to slash and burn this much-loved area of Freetown and all it represents to us as East Hampton residents. Where's the preservation when it comes down to the real dirt? This family has done more land preservation and protection just by keeping a working farm going in the spirit of the first settlers who were farming, fishing, and working both the land and the sea over hundreds of years and spend time valuing the people who actually live here and pay taxes here. The words housing crisis seems to be a buzzword that everybody likes to use. A crisis is a one-off event. The stock market crash is a crisis. That's a financial crisis. Having a heart attack is a healthcare crisis. They're one-offs. Bouncing a check is not a financial crisis. Supporting all of this is crazy. Affordable housing is a permanent issue. It's the state of play everywhere, not just here, all over Long Island, all over New York, all over the country. Affordable housing is an issue. You can't just scream crisis as as a politician because it's a worthy issue that you think you're going to actually solve. A crisis is not in perpetuity. This is a situation that is just a state of play. It's a challenge, so you work hard, you save your money, you buy a house. I did it. It was challenging. I had to sacrifice a lot. I had a commitment to live here. And that's why I worked so hard to do that. The government never stepped in. They never said, oh, wow, you're attempting to do something really hard. Let us chip in and make it smooth and easy ride, and we'll rearrange zoning to make it a better investment for LLCs to build you a house. They never did that. I never wanted them to do that. Sorry, folks, but caring more about transient workforce by throwing up condos so businessmen can make more money, get more tax breaks, and use government grants by creating affordable housing is gaslighting all of us. They're doing it for profit. This is an LLC financial scheme dressed in tax credits and government subsidies and grants to make money for their LLC. And private businesses, while we subsidize their workers working for them. It's eroding the fabric of this neighborhood and other neighborhoods. If you want to become complicit in the scheme, perhaps pay higher salaries, include benefits for people, rather than their profits and bleeding the public of their tax dollars to invest in this scheme. Business owners keeping their workforces in line. This is a 19th century plantation mentality. Workforces they're chained to them financially in the real estate they offer them to live in. They have to keep working for them. This is it's a scam. The board should not be the patsy for venal gains for a few private LLCs at the zoning expense of many local hardworking people. No is a word, and you need to say it, and you need to say it quickly. Full-time residents who work hard, save money, and buy a house and remain here should be your first and foremost priority. No aspiring someday residents who migrate to other hotspots for quick money in resort towns elsewhere and work off-season. They should not be your priority. When will this stop? It will never be enough. Stop perpetuating the cycle of more building and start preserving and protecting what makes East Hampton special. Otherwise, we're just hop-hog. If you insist on continuing down the road of disregarding zoning, disrespecting hardworking neighbors, and disavowing preservation, you will not get elected, the people who actually live here and vote. We should all be worried if the board is willing to change zoning in this neighborhood. Because if they can do it here, they can do it in your neighborhood, and your neighborhood, and your neighborhood. And it will start with 79 and might get reduced to 48, and then it will get reduced to 24, down to 6, down to 3. No neighborhood wants condominiums. So you cannot let these LLCs run roughshod over neighborhoods just so they can make more money. Don't waste our taxpayer money. Follow the comprehensive plan. You spent a lot of money on it. The taxpayers funded it. Follow the plan. This is one example of a zone change that could mean the board that you can just change zoning anywhere. You're next to your house, next to your house, next to anybody's house. We're back to spot zoning by fiat. If it can happen here on this parcel, it can happen to you, your neighbors, and on your street. 46, 24, 12, 6 condos coming to a neighborhood near you next. East Hampton will turn into hop-hog. It's the one decision to change any zoning and to accommodate rentals for LLCs anywhere in East Hampton. Don't do it. Deny the change of zoning and respect the people who live here and pay taxes and salaries. Thank you.
Brian Nichols.
LTV, can you hear me, please? Can you please put the screen on in the room here and also the 3-minute timer?
Yes, both are
Fixing that.
on.
They're not
It's
showing.
not showing here in the room, Zach.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Brian, would you like to speak? Okay, he's coming around. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, sorry, took the long way. Uh, Good morning, Supervisor, member of the Town Board. I'm here again. My name is Brian Nichols, representing my family and Rounds Home Farm, farmers for 10 generations in East Hampton. I'm here with many others to stand in opposition to the request being made to the Town Board to grant a zone change for the properties at 152 Three Mile Harbor Road and 33 West Drive. I appreciate that members of the board have made statements that they also oppose this proposal. I think it's crucial that the board formally recognize their position by means of a vote or resolution of some kind. It's unclear exactly where we stand. And for that reason, it's given all of us a lot of turmoil in our lives living there and not knowing exactly what the future holds. So, I don't need to echo, my words won't be any better than Doreen's about the flaws with the proposal. But we do have 2,800 other neighbors and petition signers who also oppose this proposal. So I'd like to present that to the town clerk to add it to the record and to the town board for their review. This isn't the right place for it, as I've said before, not here, not at this scale. The board shouldn't be rushed. They shouldn't be pressured by deadlines by a private developer to make these kinds of decisions. And I think that it would give all of us a lot of comfort if this nightmare would be finally put to bed, if a statement could be made formally. There's been a lot of news articles, there's been a lot of statements put out, but there's nothing currently that is protecting us from the developer. They're obviously desperate. They're held to a deadline that they put upon themselves in their application of today. And so who's to say that they aren't going to change their tune, come add more window dressing to their plan and try to persuade you to change your mind. And so I think whatever the means that is appropriate, I think the town board should pursue a final decision on this and add it to the record and let us move on with our
1 minute.
lives. So thank you.
So I'm checking with the town's planning director to see if we've received anything in writing from the developer, but it was reported in the papers this morning that the application has been pulled, that they're not moving forward with the project. But that's only what I've read in the papers. I have not heard that directly. Zach, we need the clock to show on the screen like we do in all our meetings, please.
We are working on it right now. I'm talking to Britt.
Broadcasting, it would be most helpful. Thank you. Would anyone else, that's all that signed up this morning? Would anyone, I'll look for a show of hands. Would somebody else like to speak?
But not about this one.
You can talk about any topic during public comment.
That's not good. That doesn't help.
Good morning. You could address the board. That would be helpful. Thank
Okay.
you. That's the way there.
Hi, good morning. My name is Camille, and I'm the Environmental Project Coordinator at the Concerned Citizens of Montauk. On behalf of CCOM, I want to make you all aware that the Federal Endangered Species Act is being threatened by our current administration. Therefore, proposed changes to the act. The first would insert economic analysis into the decision to list a species as endangered or threatened, likely putting profits over species. The second change would make listing new species more difficult. The third would make it easier to remove currently listed species, such as monarch butterflies and piping plovers, two of particular local importance. The last would make it harder to designate and protect critical habitats for threatened and endangered wildlife. If these changes are instituted, it could begin a cascade of both environmental destruction and removal of laws that protect our environment. As Chris Gangumi reported in the East Hampton Star, Frank Cavetto, who is the executive director of South Fork Natural History Museum, he said, "What's really concerning is the biodiversity that's going to be lost." Biodiversity creates ecological services that we depend on as humans. The more we reduce protections, these ecological services will be lost, and it's going to affect our health. Needless to say, the Endangered Species Act's protections are crucial. Now, what can you do to protect it? You can go to CCOM's website, preservemontauk.org, and fill out a public comment online by December 22nd of this year. CCOM will also send out emails to members with directions and a sample statement. You can call Representative Nick Lalota to comment as well. He will be watching the public comments closely through the deadline, so your voice matters, all of your voices. Remember, we consistently see that 84% of the public supports the Endangered Species Act over decades of polling. We need you to be part of that support, town board and you all, the public. So please comment by December 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Would anyone else like to address the board on any topic? Okay, Zach, we're going to go to the phones. Is there anyone on the line?
There is no one on the line.
One last time here. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, so we're going to move on to our topics. Melissa, you're up first with the CPF Water Quality RFA Grant Program.
Good morning, town board members. So I'm Melissa McCarran. I'm a principal environmental analyst in the town's natural resources department. I'm here this morning to present some recommendations from the CPF Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee with some proposed changes to the funding guide for septic projects for our request for applications grant program. So this is something we offer 1 to 2 times every year. I think this will be our 8th year offering grant funding for water quality improvement projects. And this allows our technical advisory committee, which is a board of 7 members with backgrounds in engineering, water quality, habitat protection, that they will be able to review these applications that come in and make direct comparisons between different projects in order to make recommendations to the town board for awards. So the Water Quality Committee developed a set guidance for determining funding awards specifically for septic projects in 2020. This was based on some lessons learned from our first round, which was in 2019. And we had many applications, but some of the projects chose not to move forward because the incentive just wasn't high enough for these types of projects. So back then, all of the projects, the awards were based on the flow equivalent to a single family home, which is 440 gallons per day. It's basically the flow for the project. Say it's 1,200 gallons per day. We would divide that by 440, which is the health department standard for single family home flow, and then multiply that by our residential septic rebate program amount. So it would be $20,000, basically $20,000 per the equivalent of a single family home for each project. So some projects that maybe not high flow, but were held to a higher standard, they're held to the commercial standards instead of the residential standards, which has some higher costs for different components that are required. So basically we're seeing that again, this trend for multifamily.
I just kind of in one moment, just to,
Yeah.
I think this is an opportunity while a lot of individuals are here. I speak on the liaison to the CPF Water Quality Advisory Committee with Melissa. Billy Hajak is the chairman. Melissa is one of our staff members, does a wonderful job in natural resources. And with that, what's happening right now, this is a dense subject, but I think with the group here, it's good to explain a little bit how we got here, if you don't mind, Madam Supervisor. There's a 20% CPF set aside of the total CPF for water quality projects within the town of East Hampton. That could be done for anything for bioswale, septic systems, commercial systems and such. In the past 8 years, the town board has authorized millions of dollars, all by recommendation of the CPF water quality. But what happens with any type of project that we see there, and many different projects, there's ways to tweak or better the funding source to work within what the residents and some of the property owners need. We're starting to see those environmental rewards years into this effect of the CPF water quality funding. But what happens also is we need to change and adapt, and we take recommendations from the CPF Water Quality Committee to what they're seeing as far as applicants coming in or not coming in, and for what reasons. Working within policy that they set forward and that guides the town board in our decisions right now, some of those applicants decide not to move forward with the project. It could be a not-for-profit like a church, it could be a commercial entity, or a pre-existing non-conforming entity, which Melissa is explaining about septic flow rate out there then too. I'm not talking at anyone, I'm just trying to explain what she is, because she has such a wealth of the knowledge in this right now.
Gets a little
It
technical.
gets very technical, very data driven, but also what it is, it's available to the entire community to use. It's your resource, it's your funding. What happens also most recently then too, the general obligation law was changed by Senator Palumbo and also Assemblyman Thiel at the time to allow for specifically the 20% water quality funding to now roll over every year. Initially, what ended up happening for about the first 6 years, that funding would actually, at the end of the year, extinguish and then be carried over into the open space CPF aspect, open space preservation, fishery, recreation, fisheries, infrastructure. What happened is it was requested by the 5 East End towns to allow for that water quality funding to roll over, because some of these projects are expensive and also take years to get into the making on there. Now what's happening is the water quality Technical Advisory Committee, being led by Melissa and Billy, are seeing applicants coming in, asking questions, and this is one of their recommendations to the town board. So I just wanted to sort of explain that to us, but also as we have a nice audience too, how everyone can participate in this program if needed be. It's just not septic system upgrades, it can be many other different things, and there's many other nuances to it. So I thank you for the time frame on there.
So if I just may add for everyone's information, the next topic on the agenda.
Maybe we should have.
I think maybe we should have started with that one, is an overview of the town of
Mm-hmm.
East Hampton's water quality
Do
improvement
you want to do that? Do you
project.
wanna-
I would go to
If
that.
if that
Yeah,
is better
Patrick,
for-
could you, he's on a delay.
So first we'll have an
there's a voice
overview
delay.
of the entire program, and then Melissa will discuss the committee's
more specific
Yeah.
recommendations
And we'll
for
get to the
changes.
weeds.
I think that makes sense.
Patrick, could you put the PowerPoint up for the second presentation? We're going to take this out of order.
Excuse me 1 second.
I just want to tag on to what David was saying. So this is kind of an evolving process. This is all new since the referendum passed in 2016, allowing for the 20% of CPF to be used for water quality improvement. And we're seeing that with the changes that were just, passed in 2024, making modifications to that law. But we are learning as we go, and trying to make any improvements to our programs for the benefit of the community and all our applicants, town projects that improve water quality for the town of East Hampton.
So yeah, so the recommendations on any tweaks is annual.
Yeah, it's generally
Conversation that we.
Yeah, we make a recommendation and then it's implemented for the next year. So that's what we're doing.
Let's start with the overview.
Okay, great.
Okay, so
Thank you, Melissa, for your
yeah, no problem. So Melissa McCarron, Principal Environmental Analyst in the Natural Resources Department. So I'm presenting an overview of our water quality improvement program through CPF. Since we implemented this program it passed in 2016, we really got going in 2017. Next slide. There's a bit of a delay. But as Dave was saying, so the mission of Community Preservation Fund since 1999, which is when CPF began, was to preserve community character with preserving land. In 2016, it was amended to add the protection and improvement of the quality of all our water resources. So we have been using up to 20% of annual CPF water quality improvement projects up until this is the first year that that funding will roll over. So we haven't used the maximum of the 20% yet, but moving forward, if there's larger projects that come along, then that will be that funding available to fund those. So the town adopted a water quality improvement plan in 2016, which is a guidance document that helps lay out all the projects and programs specifically that would be funded through the plan, just so we have a roadmap for where to go. And this identifies priority water bodies, programs, projects, to improve water quality through reduction of sources of pollution and remediation and restoration of our local water bodies. Next slide. So the CPF law dictated project types eligible for funding. So that included wastewater treatment improvement projects, such as upgrading our sanitary systems, making improvements to any sewage treatment plants, which in the town of East Hampton, there's only one public sewage treatment plant, which is in Sag Harbor, which we have provided funding to for improvements and expansion.
That's a project that's underway now, too.
Yes, underway, yeah, with the construction. It's a long time coming, but that'll be moving forward soon. They got a lot of outside grants as well, but it was partially funded with CPF. Non-point source pollution abatement and control program projects. So that could include stormwater remediation, reducing runoff through rain gardens, bioswales, installation of additional catch basins, potentially with infiltration or filter treatment to remove contaminants before filtering into the ground or directly running off into our water bodies. Aquatic habitat restoration, so eelgrass restoration type projects. We've done some seaweed grow outs, constructed wetlands, things like that. And then pollution prevention really is targeting more point sources, so such as like a sewage treatment plant, but we've also kind of included that as pollution prevention, more education and outreach kind of components.
We've also funded sugar kelp and also aquaculture projects
Yep.
then, too.
Next slide, Patrick. So for accomplishments, I really have three kind of main categories of the types of funding that we allocated. So the first one is our water quality request for applications program, which the next memo that I'll be presenting later touches on. So this was initiated in 2019. Through the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, which is our group of experts that reviews all projects and applications and makes recommendations to the town board. All CPF expenditures are reviewed by the town board, approved via resolution. So in 7 years, we've had 11 rounds of this grant program. We've funded 55 projects totaling approximately $10 million. So some of the scope of types of projects that we funded. We've done some commercial and not-for-profit septic upgrades. These include restaurants, schools, churches, marinas, the Sag Harbor sewage treatment plant. We've actually funded the septic upgrade for this building for the Montauk Library. So we kind of really focus on community centers to help, the residents of East Hampton as a whole. So throughout the presentation, I kind of just threw in some project highlights for specific projects. So one of the projects we funded was the St. Luke's Church Rectory. This was a nitrogen-reducing biofilter, which is a type of innovative alternative sanitary system. But this was a pilot. It was designed by the Center for Clean Water Technology at SUNY Stony Brook. So it's a little bit different. It's more of a passive treatment system. Using layers of sand and wood chips creates kind of a reactive zone for denitrifying bacteria to grow. It's the kind of the science behind all the IAs. That the denitrifying bacteria breaks down the nitrate into nitrogen gas. It gets off gas, and then it's no longer in the water. So the system promotes nitrification, so conversion of the ammonia in wastewater to nitrate, and then denitrification from nitrate to nitrogen gas. So that's kind of like the science mechanism behind these IAs. So this system is working really well, and the latest results from the Center for Clean Water Technology, the nitrogen in the post-treatment effluent was approximately 0 milligrams per liter. So they're removing almost entirely all the nitrogen that's coming into the system, which is great. So some of the other types of projects that we funded through this program, with stormwater abatement projects. So one of the most successful ones we've seen is the Methodist Lane bioswale, which I have more slides on after this one. So I'll get into more detail on that one after. Permeable reactive barriers, which is a type of groundwater treatment to remove nitrogen, similar technology to the IA that I was just explaining, where you're putting into the ground a carbon source to help denitrifying bacteria thrive. The groundwater that flows through this permeable reactive barrier is then treated and the nitrogen is removed. So we've done some of these projects in 3 Mile Harbor, Accabonoc Harbor, Hog Creek, and Georgia Pond watersheds.
And also, we just authorized a resolution at 66 Main Street, Wainscott, for poor water testing also,
Yep.
to potentially allow for studies for a PRB on that property because of the harmful algae blooms within that property that did not have any public access to it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're looking to do some site characterization work to kind of define exactly where the highest nitrogen inputs are coming into Wainscott Pond there, and hopefully design a PRB to treat that so it's removed before it enters the pond, and hopefully alleviate some of the pressure to reduce harmful algal blooms in the future there.
And that pond has been considered one of the most polluted water bodies in terms of blue-green algae, which is toxic, on Long Island, I
Yeah, year
believe.
after year.
And what David mentioned is that if we hadn't purchased the property at 66 Wainscott for the public, we would not be able to do any type of water testing, as it was a private, it had no public access, and we can only do things on properties where there is access to for the public.
Exactly. Yep. So I do have a project highlight for a PRB that was installed at 60 Harbor View. It's behind a bulkhead for 3 Mile Harbor. That was completed by Cornell Cooperative Extension. It was installed in 2024. And basically, a series of soil borings were installed behind the bulkhead and then backfilled with the wood chips to create that reactive zone to treat the groundwater, which had high nitrogen, and actually was kind of a perfect location because all of the water kind of flowed to one location because of all the bulkheading. And had a preferential pathway right into 3 Mile Harbor. So we were capturing that and treating it before it entered the harbor. But we saw, based on the spring 2025 data, a reduction in nitrate from 7.7 milligrams per liter to 2.7, so a 65% reduction in the nitrogen in the initial testing. And that these systems are designed to last up to 30 years based on the degradation of the wood chips. And then we've also seen some aquatic habitat restoration projects. So eelgrass restoration in Napeague Harbor was funded, kelp grow outs in Hog Creek and 3 Mile Harbor, and then floating wetlands in Fort Pond. Slide. So this was a project highlight on their Surfrider Methodist Lane bioswale stormwater improvement project. So this was awarded in 2020. The installation was completed in June of 2022. Surfrider Foundation worked on this project, and they installed over 12,000 native plants, including native trees, shrubs, and flowering plants. And since it was installed, I mean, most people probably drive by it almost every day. It's become well established, but you can see from the photos just the impact that it's had during rain events. So on the left, it's before the project happened. You can see a lot of ponding after a heavy rain. And then on the right, after all the plantings were installed, you know, how it's really handling that water, helping filtration, treatment, capturing debris. They included a lot of education and outreach in this project with local schools. So the students collected all that debris out of the rain garden. So it's really doing some work protecting Hook Pond.
And then the Rewild group, they worked there this summer. I know that we heard stories about all the mugwort that they removed.
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
the
don't want those invasive species to come in and take over. Next slide, Patrick. So the next program I wanted to talk about was the septic incentive program. This kicked off in September of 2017. Since then, we have installed 929 IA systems through the program. Residents coming in and requesting, putting in applications for eligibility and then completing the project on their properties. We've issued almost $15 million in incentive or rebate funding to those residents to upgrade their sanitary systems. We've seen an uptick in systems installed every year. So in 2025 to date, we have 168 septic systems installed, and I assume we'll have a few more before the end of the year. And we've had almost 1,500 eligibility applications approved as well.
Melissa, could you just clarify one point on this? Because I've heard, and I don't know if it's anecdotal or not, but there's a perspective that for these systems to really be effective, the property needs to be used year round. Otherwise, the bacteria becomes ineffective in the winter months, and then the system needs to be restarted from this. Is that correct?
Early on, we had that concern, but the vendors and suppliers have basically, and through the testing, have shown that it really only takes a short period of time for the system to start up and the microbial activity to, kick in again. So it's not really as much of a concern as we originally thought.
Thank you.
Could you just address what kind of septic incentives are available? Because I know that money came down from the state and the county, so maybe there's become more interest.
Yeah, so the town has our septic incentive program. The town offers $20,000 incentive to residents to upgrade if they're in our high priority areas, which is our water protection district, generally around the vicinity or 0 to 10 year groundwater travel time to our priority water bodies. Or you can get $15,000 if you're outside of those areas. So everyone in East Hampton is eligible for an incentive. It just depends on the amount on priority location. And then the county and New York State both have programs. Right now, I believe it's still $10,000 through the New York State grant, and then I believe it's $15,000 through Suffolk County. But I believe those numbers will soon be changing based on dedication of state funding to the program. I think they're going to be increasing that to $25,000 per property. So
a resident is eligible for all of that
three
for
programs.
upgrading their septic system on their residential property. It's available to every resident.
Reasonable as possible. Hopefully the whole cost will be covered. We're seeing in East Hampton a range of probably like 35 to 45 the average installation cost, so it can be covered if you receive all the funding.
Could you just bring the microphone a little closer? I'm getting a text that
Oh,
we need you to,
Sorry about
to be closer to you.
And then I just have some photos on here. People have gotten really creative with how to hide the lids that are required to be able to be accessed for maintenance. So you can see kind of some plantings around the lids to hide them, or this woman was very clever and got planters that she can put soil and flowering plants to kind of beautify her yard.
So it's good to see that this has just been increasing. The number of applications have been increasing per year.
Yeah.
It's had quite a number.
Next slide. So we also have a good number of town projects that have been completed and are underway. So different kind of categories. So we have a lot of municipal septic upgrades. We're trying to lead by example. We've installed 16 systems on town facilities. We've been focusing mostly on comfort stations that serve, the widest variety of, number of residents. But we've upgraded the Springs Library, Springs Youth Center at Springs School, and we're working towards upgrades at Terry King Ball Field, the CDCH building, And
And with that list on municipal properties, yourself and also with staff and the Water Quality Advisory Committee prioritize what locations should be done first based on the usage, the nitrogen flow rate out of there. And that's what we've been working off of. And it was a very helpful tool that you put together, I think, in 2021.
yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, we're looking at proximity to water bodies, the need for the facility to be upgraded based on the age of the system, and things like that.
And pending projects such as the West Lake Comfort Station, which we completely redid, put fisheries gear storage behind it. And it's a perfect opportunity to upgrade that septic system too.
Yeah, if we're doing a project, it made sense to, kind of put everything together and do all the disturbance at one time. We've also done some stormwater abatement projects in Lake Montauk, Sag Harbor, 3 Mile Harbor, and Ecabonic Harbor watersheds. We've done some engineering studies on stormwater pipe conveyance systems for Cove Hollow and Lowenstein. So basically the engineer came in, did a review of the age of the system, if there were any issues with the system, and then looking at where we can potentially do some future projects to reduce the flow of water getting into the pipe, which is conveyed directly to a water body.
And both those were legacy engineering from reconstruction in the 40s, post-war on there. God bless you.
Yeah. And so I wanted to highlight a project that was more recently completed at South Lake Montauk. So this was completed in 2024. We installed a dry stream bed to capture and treat stormwater runoff from the parking lot at South Lake. We also installed some permeable parking spaces, pervious walking paths. We did upgrade the septic system to an IA system, and there were a lot of invasive plants down here, so we did a removal and installation of native plantings. We've done some permeable reactive barriers. I'm going to talk more about the Tanbark Creek PRB, which is in the headwaters of 3 Mile Harbor, which was an injection PRB. So it's one of the first injection PRBs to treat nitrogen, first on Long Island. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, and I have some diagrams to show what that really means. And then we've done some pump out tank replacements and purchased some new pump out boats, which was a collaboration with the East Hampton Town trustees. Next slide. So this was a really interesting project, the Tanbark Creek Permeable Reactive Barrier. So this involved the injection of an emulsified soybean oil, which served as the carbon source. So instead of wood chips, we're using soybean oil here to create the microbial community to treat groundwater rich with nitrogen to denitrify the groundwater, as I was saying before, with that mechanism. So this was 150 feet long. The actual injection of the soybean oil targeted the zone where the nitrogen is in the groundwater, which was between 15 and 25 feet below grade. So we installed wells that were clustered so we can, that are screened at a certain depth. So that means it's perforated at a certain depth where the soybean oil gets injected into the ground and permeates out of the well screen and kind of creates a region where the treatment occurs.
Could you just locate exactly so folks know where exactly this was done?
I think the next slide has.
Okay, I don't want to jump ahead.
It's not,
It's
doesn't
right
really
behind
show
Fit-
exactly. the
Fiddler's
site map.
Cove or whatever.
Yeah, it's by Soakhides Road, down at the beginning of 3 Mile Harbor in the headwaters area. Right kind of behind like
Behind the trailer
Deli.
park,
Right.
By the trailer park.
which is historically high levels of nitrogen coming out of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the goal really of all of these PRB projects is to target areas where there's known high nutrient inputs into the harbors, creeks, what have you, wherever we're focusing on, based on some site characterization, monitoring that we've done. We've done a lot of this work with Cornell Cooperative Extension, but it's really from diffuse upgradient sources. So likely all of the septic systems upgrade all that water that gets into the groundwater is flowing towards our water bodies. So that's why we're targeting the shoreline where it all comes together. So this project was funded, we got a grant from New York State DEC for $375,000, and then we provided the match funding with CPF Water Quality. So this was installed in 2022. We do have some ongoing performance monitoring that's being completed with a partnership with CPF Water Quality, Peconic Estuary Program, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Clear Environmental. But we're showing some pretty significant nitrate reduction between the up gradient and down gradient wells of where the project was completed. I have a map that kind of shows that on the next slide. But we've seen 81% nitrate removal in the summer and 84% in the fall. And we're continuing monitoring here for 5 years. Next slide. So this diagram kind of shows what this PRB is. So on the left, you can kind of see, the diagram of a septic system, but basically anything that infiltrates into the ground that can be a source of nitrogen, like, pet waste, wildlife, and, sanitary systems. Anything that gets into our groundwater will eventually flow to our surface waters. So Cornell Cooperative Extension installed a series of wells. So on the right, you can kind of see a map. It's not zoomed out enough to kind of see where in 3 Mile Harbor it is, but they did several cluster wells in the yellow, and then up gradient wells. So before treatment data is collected from the red wells, and then the blue is down gradient. So they're kind of showing the before and after treatment. So that's where that 81 and 84% reduction is coming from. But they installed the wells. They injected this soybean oil to create this zone. The water flows through it and then is treated before it gets into 3 Mile Harbor. And then I just had the modeled flow path, so basically showing groundwater flowing through the wells towards 3 Mile Harbor on the bottom.
Melissa, as well as the nitrate levels, which we're measuring internally, do we do water quality testing in the adjacent water body to kind of ascertain what improvements are occurring there?
So that is actually something we are proposing upcoming. So CPF Water Quality, to date, really, the only monitoring we've been doing is for specific remedial project. It wasn't designed to do just widespread baseline monitoring, but we want to do that. So we are making that proposal next week.
Correct. The General Obligation Law 2016 did not allow for that. So you had to work with NGOs such as CCOM, Surfrider, or others, Cornell Cooperative, to monitor on that. But that is something we're also looking to change within CPF law.
Yeah,
and
there
to
is
allow for.
some monitoring that's done
Correct.
in all our water bodies. Dr. Gobler works with the town trustees and does annual monitoring and reporting to them. But we want to do a little bit more robust monitoring moving forward so we can really see the impact that all of our projects are making in improving water quality moving forward. Next slide. So I just want to touch on some large-scale projects that are up and coming. We've been working on the engineering design for these 3 larger projects for some time, and the design is complete and they're moving forward. So we have the Westlake Stormwater Abatement and boat launch on Duryea Avenue. So this is for the reduction of stormwater runoff into Lake Montauk. This is fully permitted. It's currently out to bid. I believe the bid is due this week. And so our goal, we're shooting to install this winter before the summer 2026 season, so we don't get in the boaters' way. So I have diagrams of all of these on later slides to kind of show what these really are. But we got a $100,000 grant from Suffolk County, and then that'll offset costs with CPF. And then we have the New York State 27 Rest Stop Stormwater Abatement Project. That is moving forward. We're estimating a fall 2026 installation. We have all of our permits except for the New York State OT permit, the Department of Transportation. This is actually on New York State property, or at least a portion of it is. So we need a permit through them. We actually do need to hire the contractor before we can get that permit. So that's the next step, is going out to bid, hiring the contractor, getting everything in line, and then finalizing that permit. We did get a $500,000 grant from New York State to do that project, and then that will offset CPF as well.
We're partnering, aren't we, with the Friends of Georgia Capon?
Yeah,
on
so
that?
this project was a partner with the village, Friends of Georgia Capon, Peconic Land Trust, the Department of Transportation, and the town. And then the last big project is the Cove Hollow End of Pipe Treatment Constructed Wetland Project. This was a recommendation that came out of our engineering study with VHB on the Cove Hollow stormwater pipe to treat all that runoff that's collected and conveyed to Georgia Capon before it enters the pond. So this is more likely a winter 2027 install, but this is a partnership with East Hampton Village, because the site is actually on village property. The Friends of Georgia Capon, East Hampton trustees, and we are just waiting on the New York State DEC permit for that project. And we'll be applying for grants in 2026 to offset. Next slide. So it's a little small on that screen, but this is the site plan for the Westlake Stormwater Abatement Project. So basically what we're doing, this is at the boat launch on Duryea Avenue. The goal is to reduce the stormwater volume and provide natural treatment before any water runs off into Lake Montauk. So we're proposing installing True Grid parking areas. So the middle is going to remain asphalt paved for ease of launching boats off the boat launch, but the parking area is going to be using this True Grid technology. So basically it's a grid that keeps the aggregate gravel in place so it doesn't move around and shift, and provides a pervious surface for water to infiltrate into the ground before it runs off. And also installing rain gardens on the north and south side of the parking areas, as well as a bioretention area in a low spot right at the entrance.
This at the Montauk CAC meeting on Monday, so they're currently aware we're out in the process. The main thing is, as we get closer to accepting the bid, contractor bid bond, and getting the contract out, mobilization, all that, we're getting tight to the window, the February windows for boaters.
Yes.
So as we move ahead on that, until we'll just make sure we'll let the harbor master know.
Yep. Yeah, then they walked the site with us, and we went through the whole plant listing with our town arborists and Mark Abramson and Natural Resources, who does all the revegetation compliance. So they've cleared all the plantings for this project. Next slide. The next one is the New York State 27 Rest Stop. This is another stormwater abatement project with the goal to reduce and treat the runoff entering Georgia Pond at Talmadge Creek. So there's really 3 sites for this project. I'm only showing 2, but it's the 27 Rest Stop in Wainscott. So it's kind of the gateway to East Hampton. So the goal is some water quality improvement, but also like a beautification as well. We partnered with Peconic Land Trust, so a bioswale is going to be installed on the Georgia Preserve property that they own, as well as a right-of-way rain garden to the north on Old Montauk Highway. So this kind of included, so you can see kind of the planting plans. So the bioswale on the Peconic Land Trust property to the left, which is to the west. Plantings on the 27 Rest Stop site, as well as we're doing permeable pavers for the parking area, and flexi pave walking paths, which is a permeable surface to allow for more infiltration to the ground before the stormwater runs off, and also installing some catch basins with pretty advanced treatment and inlet filters to provide treatment of anything entering there, to remove sediment, nutrients, bacteria, and things like that.
So add on to that, this project's been a long-term coming, probably about almost 7 years in the planning on this, working with the village, the state stakeholders and kind of land trust, who's the owner, the former Sephora Demar. She said there's two sections. On the north section of the highway there's actually a culvert that runs underneath there that discharges here. So again, it's another legacy issue with drainage, God bless you, in the area. Then two, it still will allow for public access to the pond in this location. We have done permeable pavers in two locations, down Bay Street and also down here in South Lake. For the first time, we will try the flexi asphalt on there, which is like glass or aerated asphalt that allows for more percolation through asphalt. It's a more of a novel option out here, but it's been used a lot of different areas. They all have a lot of maintenance there. This rest stop, New York State DOT has to have certain rest stops, certain distances. So we couldn't just remove this. Again, there's a rest stop on the north side of there, or the old, I think that's the original Montauk Highway. The one thing I would request is that if we can tell them, if we can take the sign down that's there, the New York State 1935 Department of Education sign, and we can repaint that in our sign shop if we can add that to the project.
Yeah. All right. And then next slide for the last one. So this is the Cove Hollow end of pipe treatment constructed wetland. So as I was saying before, VHB did a full comprehensive review of the Cove Hollow stormwater pipe, which runs from 114 down to Cove Hollow Road and it conveys stormwater from that whole area, drainage area, to Georgia Pond. So basically what we're proposing here is cutting off the pipe at Georgica Road and diverting the flow of water into this constructed wetland, which is a series of vegetated shallow wetland micropools, which provides natural treatment, infiltration, plant uptake of the nutrients, and reduces the flow of water going into Georgia Pond, as well as improving the quality of the water going into Georgia Pond. Promotes some settling and natural treatment. And then we're also, so the rest of the site is really going to remain the same, except we're going to be improving the access to the pond with a proposed pervious ramp to the pond. So this project is still being reviewed by New York State DEC, but we expect to be able to install in 2027.
And again, another major project that's been 5-6 years in the making on there. For anyone that doesn't know that this watershed, it's a legacy concrete pipe that goes all the way up to the Riverhead Building Supply where the dairy barn is, up there on 114. First phases that we did 6 years ago, we ran a scope all the way down the length of it. Same thing we did out here in Lowenstein Pipe. There are many utilities that were just busted right through it. You had cable, you had gas pipes going through these, not knowing all the way through was just sort of disconcerting.
We were able to contact all those utilities and they did remove and repair.
Correct. So again, it's the first portion of the multiple phases of funding that this project's gone through. It's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. Also working with the village, stakeholders, Georgia Pond Association, others. Not Georgia, Friends of Georgia
Friends of
Pond.
Georgia Pond.
I apologize. Also with the design here to, instead of coming in and making it a plethora of parking spots to continue the characteristics that are down there, very rural in the area, and allow access into the pond if you're kayaking or whatever options you might want to do down there. But it's long-term coming.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll be an interesting project, kind of one of the first constructed wetlands that we've done. But the village kind of wanted to maintain the community character, but we still want to implement the water quality improvement component of the project. So.
Correct, and there's multiple, once that water flushes into the constructed wetland, there's multiple checks on there, in which checks mean how the water then goes over a check, filters,
slows it down,
sifts,
settles,
stays, goes through.
Yep. So that was the last one I had.
Great. So does board members have any questions or comments that they have for Melissa?
No, I've asked mine as we went through, so I'm good.
Yeah.
I think my only question to ask Madam Supervisor is, a lot of these came through RFA processes. These are some municipal projects. What's the anticipated timeframe of a potential new RFA that you're looking for? That also comes into the recommendation, again, for the viewing public.
Yes, so the request for application grant program, the first round of 2026 will be open December 15th. And so that will remain open for 2 months. It'll be closed February 16th. So any resident, commercial applicant, not-for-profit that's looking to potentially fund a water quality improvement project in the town of East Hampton could submit an application. Applications will be available on the town website. And those applications get reviewed by the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, and recommendations are made to the town board for funding allocations.
And then they require a public hearing in order
It
to
goes through
move
public
forward.
hearing. Yep.
Who could they contact in the town if they needed information?
So you can contact the Natural Resources Department and reach out to me directly. And you can find our information on the town website.
Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, for the home IA systems, this is for existing structures only, not new construction, correct?
So for residential IA upgrades, that really would go through the septic incentive program, which is the $20,000 grant. But yes, that's only for upgrading existing sanitary systems, not new construction.
Okay. All right, so now we can go back to the proposed modifications you want to make to the septic funding guide. Does it help to have the?
Only
think-
for if the public, if it helps.
I don't think it's really readable.
Yeah.
Patrick, you don't need to post
Anybody's
anything
interested can
on
get it off
Zoom.
the town website
The
as
type's
well.
too small.
Yep.
This was meant
So
to,
yeah, this is a proposal from the town's Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee. We're proposing modifications to the funding guide for septic projects through our request for application grant program. Sorry, just wait a minute.
yeah, why don't we give it a minute for folks to clear the room?
So the Water Quality Committee, through this program since 2019, has made modifications as we go, as this is an evolving process, and we're continually trying to improve. But the Water Quality Committee has observed that some applicants have decided not to move forward if the funding awards don't cover at least 50% of the costs. So previously, award amounts for
Britt, can we close the doors? There's folks standing in the lobby there. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Previously, the funding awards for multifamily and high-density residences were calculated based on the equivalency flow to a single-family home, as I was explaining earlier, which often doesn't really equate to some of these larger-scale septic systems that they're required to meet a different standard than residential properties. So they really are required to meet the commercial standards, which can include added costs. So it really doesn't equate. So basically what they're proposing is changing how these projects are viewed and calculated. For multifamily and high density residences, we're proposing awards based on justified installation costs only, with a maximum of 65% of the total cost for properties that are located in priority areas, and then 50% for all other sites outside of priority areas. The Water Quality Committee is also proposing an increase in the cap set on commercial properties only, from the current cap, which is $200,000 to $300,000. So it would be 65% of those justified installation costs with a cap of $300,000, or 50% of those costs capped at $300,000 if they're not in a priority area.
On commercial properties only.
Commercial properties only. There is no cap on any other use. And then these modifications are being proposed to be implemented starting in the next round, which is the first round of 2026. As I was saying, closes in February, on February 16th, for applicants to be reviewed. And that's it.
So add a little color to that. The simple one, the easiest one is the commercial, going from 200,000 to 300,000. I think we even increased that in the past up to 200,000. We were finding that septic system costs are exorbitantly high for commercial flow rates on there, and to the point where they might cost over a couple million bucks or more on there. So to to use this as an incentive program, which it is, and which was pitched in the referendum in 2016 on there, we're finding out that the incentivification that's there is not enough, put it that way on there then too. And this would be enough that the property owners still have to put a lot of skin in the game if they wanted to do so, but it could incentivize more applications to continue on the hard work that the team, the town has done also. The other portion about the residential, this goes to a lot of pre-existing non-conforming properties. A lot of pre-existing non-conforming properties might have multi-density properties on there, hence 2 houses on a property. Some of them might be in a priority water zone or not, but the way the county looks at it, you might have to have a lift system in there, a pump system, 2
Yeah.
IAs. It can
Pump
be,
station adds $25,000.
yeah,
off the bat.
yes, and why, I don't really know the way you've been explaining it to me, excuse me for
And that's at a minimum.
animated there. But that costs there that ends up de-incentivizing. So what this will do was almost put a different category for some of these non-conformingness and potentially allow for that, because the town of East Hampton does have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming dual-density properties or multi-density properties
Right.
within the town ranks on there.
Yeah, the Suffolk County standards, it's called other than single-family homes. So it doesn't really make sense for us to be comparing other than single-family homes to a single-family home, because it just doesn't, it's apples to oranges.
So, I mean, I'll start off. I'm largely supportive of these recommendations. My one concern is that we tend to set the market rate with this. You know, the more money we put towards it, it seems the higher the bids from the contractors are coming back, and it's going to continue to be the case as we put more money. But I think the end goal here is that, look, we're going to end up with better water quality the more people take it on, which is why I'm overall supportive.
At least with these awards, unless it's a not-for-profit community center, we're never going to fully fund a commercial applicant. So it's really, they have the skin in the game. So
Or it's a lower percentage opportunity chance.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of small ones that might, but never.
Yeah,
Yeah, never fully, but
never fully. So, you know, it's really on the applicant to do their homework, get multiple bids, and have, you know, competitive costs too.
I mean, how many providers are there on the East End typically putting these in?
There's a lot more now.
Yeah.
The county does have a full list of their approved vendors, and it's probably at least more than 20.
Okay.
yeah, and the committee is very aware of that type of comment, that sentiment, and I would agree with that. And they're very aware of looking and making sure that the taxpayer funds go out appropriately and not being fleeced, if you want to say in a way. They look to make sure that they get the best for whatever the costs are putting in, besides just the overall outcome of hopefully better water quality too.
Right. When I say justified costs, I mean the
Yes.
committee and my office, we audit all of the
Receipts.
budgets and receipts and invoices that come in to make sure that it's justified cost and that it's a reasonable cost.
How have we seen kind of the inflation on these type of systems increase in the last few years?
Since COVID, they increased a lot, and a lot of the contractors, you know, kind of cited that as some of the increase in costs. And since we are out on the East End, our systems do tend to be a little bit more expensive because, you know, we're farther away from
As everything else is.
from everything else. But they have probably gone up at least 30% since the beginning, but so has everything else. So.
So I'm supportive of the recommendations as you put them forth. I'm also hoping that we consider and that the board considers changes to our view on landscaping and what is sustainable landscaping. And as we address how to to improve our water quality from a way to take the nitrogen out of what's already put in, that we also look to address what we put in to begin with. I think these kinds of things go hand in hand.
And I will be back next week to present recommendations from the Water Quality Committee to modify our water quality improvement plan. As I said, this is kind of an evolving process, so we want to do an update in 2026 of the plan, which is our guidance document.
So Melissa, this would be a policy change, and this would be a resolution of a policy change?
I'm not sure if it needs to be a resolution. I think it's more just a recommendation from the committee of how they are going to recommend to you. So it's just kind of
The change of the policy.
change of the policy.
So is everybody supportive with all of the policy changes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you'll be ready on
Yeah, so
12/15 to
Next year.
put out the
this will be
round one
implemented. Okay.
RFA.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa, for the extensive updates. Obviously, water quality is incredibly important, and this was great.
Yeah, and it's great to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it is.
Okay, next up is the Chapter 255, modify requirements for ADUs. And we've got Brittany Toledano here, take us through it. I don't know, Ian, if you wanted to, oh, I'm sorry, Tom, if there was anything you wanted to say as a setup?
No, I mean, look, I think obviously, thank you everyone for coming today. It's hearing your voices is incredibly important. This is something with regards to housing, and I don't want to play semantics on this, but housing is an issue out here. It's not the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago. There are not a lot of jobs out here that a young person can get and afford a house. And we do, as a town, need to look at initiatives to provide housing. And that's where, ADUs initially evolved. They're across the country, they exist. And for those of you who don't know what they are, they've been known as granny flats or, other kind of terms. But it's basically allowing existing homeowners to build on a separate apartment or a detached apartment or attached to, allow people to live there. They are rent controlled. And the homeowner themselves gets to choose the tenant. The tenant has to live and work in the town. Historically, we've had restrictions on lot size where this can happen, so it started off, I think, about 40,000 square feet. It got reduced to 20,000 square feet. This legislation is looking to reducing the required lot size to build an ADU to 15,000 square feet. The reason we've done that is, just looking through the property parcels across the town, the majority of lots are in that lower size. So, we have a cap on how many ADUs can be built in the town. That is set at 40 at this point in time.
40 per hamlet.
40 per hamlet, thank you,
per
yes.
school district.
Per school district, thank you. And, we're not increasing that, but we have not hit that cap since introducing this ADU legislation. So what we're looking to do here is to decrease the required lot size, and the other major restriction here is the home ownership, to get more ADUs built for people. So as I just mentioned there, the second part of this is, historically ADUs have only been allowed to be built by primary property owners. So it's your primary home and you can build an ADU. The problem there is that, as we all know, most properties out here are people's second homes. And, what we really need is for second homeowners to build ADUs to provide more housing for people out here. So those are the two key changes that we're proposing this legislation. The other kind of more minor one is changing the parking limitation. Historically, parking's been limited for properties with ADUs to 4 cars. And so we're going to be increasing that in this code change to 5 cars. Those are my major changes. Over to you, Brie.
Good afternoon, Madam
Done.
Supervisor, members of the board. The amendments that are before you are the 2 scriveners are corrections that we discussed last time. And as Councilmember Flight pointed out, the single lot size threshold has been reduced to 15,000 square feet for all ADUs.
So I had asked our housing director, Morgan Perez, for just to get an update of how many ADUs we have. So there are 65 residential ADUs and 23 commercial ADUs for a total of 88. So we've got 1 in Amagansett, 34 in East Hampton, 20 in Montauk, 22 in Springs, and 0 in Waynescott. So with East Hampton at 34, if this legislation gets adopted, I think we're going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, the 34, to be clear, is not all of them have been built. Some of those have been recently permitted, is my understanding. So I think there's 27 actually currently built and 7 have permits to be built. So yes, you're right, though. We're getting very close to that cap of 40 in East Hampton. But as you heard from those numbers, in other school districts where the lot sizes, like Montauk, are much smaller, there are far fewer ADUs out there.
So like I think I had said this earlier, we had already heard this last month, I guess it was, right? November. So we needed to bring this back because we wanted to make some changes. do board members have any questions, comments, anything they wanted to address today before we renotice this for public hearing?
No, I support the changes that we've made, which we've already discussed in public. And of course, we had a change the Scribner's error, which is why we're going back again, why it's in discussion again. The only thing I might disagree with is that most of the homes are second homes in East Hampton. I don't think that's true. I think we're a year-round community and we have a lot of second home people, homes owned by second homers, but not most. Not in the town of East Hampton, but I support this legislation. As I said before, I think this is the ability to be able to have family members or to make a rent-controlled income and being able to stay in your home is something that I'm happy to see it building because I think this is a way to keep folks here for our year-round community, and I'm supportive of the changes.
Yeah, I'm strongly supportive as well. I think that, I think housing is as Tom said, I don't want to play semantics, but it's a very big problem out here. And it's continuing to get worse. And so I think that we have to look at all solutions. Not every project in every place is right, but I think it's important that we continue to look at every tool available to address the need. And I particularly like ADUs.
With any type of legislation, you want to legislate, but you also have to make sure that the rules are followed. That comes through the enforcement, through the permitting process, yearly checks, making sure you see the leases of the individuals coming in there. First time on the board, I was supported by the supervisor who was on the board at that time, also council member Bert Gonzalez at that time, to decrease it from an acre down to a half acre. There are some individuals thought that was going to open the floodgates and never did. Even by bringing it down to a half acre, it didn't happen. I welcome more applications of this nature on there. We've seen some ADUs being built very effectively, detached ones. This is one of the ways that you can have multi-generations potentially on the same property legally, but a little bit separated. And I think it's a good step forward there. I know there's been some discussions about LLCs and such as far as ownership groups. That's, I think, a little bit of a longer look at it. Personally, my family lives in a house that's under an LLC under their name. So if they wanted to have ADU and have my daughter live with them, I think that should be appropriate. And those are ways that we can use our enforcement techniques to make sure that no one tries to game the new laws. So with that, I would love to go back to the public hearing, see what else the public has to say at that time.
No, great. Thank you, David. And to my colleagues, just one thing on the LLCs, I will say that for any LLC, even currently that is applying for an ADU, unlike most LLCs, there has to be an identified individual associated with that LLC for them to get an ADU permit. So it does have that mechanism in place.
So Brittany, because this is part of the zoning code, does this have to go back to the planning board for review?
Yes, it should.
Okay. So we're not ready, we can't notice it on the 18th unless they've got a meeting in between and we can squeak this on.
I believe there are 2 meetings of the planning board in between. I can check with them about timing.
Yeah, because they've already seen it, and before, maybe you could explain for the community what.
Sure. So they've already seen the legislation, but because there's a substantive change, which is the single lot size threshold, it would go back to the planning board so the planning board could weigh in on it and provide comments to the town board.
Great, so we're good on that.
And Brittany, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think technically, even if we noticed it and we received their comments before we made a vote, that would still be okay or no? Do we need the planning board to give us comments before we hear it? It might be a good idea in case they have changes.
If they have changes, you should hear their changes.
All right, so last topic today is the revised affordable multiple residence legislation. And Zach, if you could let Eric in, please. There he is. Hi, Eric.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. So, yeah, sorry.
I was just saying, Ian, were you going to set this up or no need?
I don't want to steal Eric's thunder.
Okay.
I think that this has been talked about once. There's a couple of small changes, which I think he'll describe, that came out of public comment, but this is another sort of small scale way to address the affordable housing need.
Great.
So,
the only other thing I want to say, Eric, I'm sorry. One other thing is I want to, Brittany's done a lot of work on this as a town attorney, but Ed Reale, our new housing attorney, who's been with us for just a short time, has been very helpful on this and many other things. And I just want to recognize him and give him credit.
Great.
Okay, so just to give everyone a background, affordable multiple residence is a proposed new use that would allow people to create up to 4 affordable housing units per acre on lots only within the AHO and only after site plan special permit approval. It's sort of a step up from, you can think of it as a step up from an ADU, but a step below a full-scale affordable housing development as a use. So as was mentioned, the town board has reviewed this a number of times and in fact held a public hearing on September 18th. There are 2 changes that we'd like to make that came out of comments at the public hearing and further consideration of the law. What I will do is screen share you a copy of sort of just the draft changes to the language. I may need to zoom in. It might not be particularly helpful. Unless you can see it clearly. Hopefully you can now. But you'll see, and we highlighted the changes in red and green for the holidays. But you'll see that there's 2, I won't go through the specific language unless the board wants me to, but there's basically 2 main categories here. One is consideration and addition in the code of allowing an owner-occupied unit. That is a term that would be defined, and you can see it on the screen there on the left-hand side. We had really always envisioned that if somebody, a private homeowner wanted to build one of these and add units, that they would be allowed to live in one of the units and continue to live on the property. There's also advantages to that of having the landlord on site. So we view it as more of a clarification of what we had originally intended, but basically worked into the code now is a provision that one of the units, only one of them, can be an owner-occupied unit that can be occupied by either the property owner or an immediate family member, which is also defined. Basically, and then also that would not be subject to the affordability requirements. That would basically, you can almost even think of it as like a manager's apartment that allows somebody that wants to do this and convert a single family residence to continue to live on their property and just create the additional units that are affordable. That's similar to an ADU where the property owner continues to live on the property. The other main change, and you can see in green on the right-hand side, is originally we had a requirement that all units, excuse me, be required to be multi-unit buildings. However, upon further consideration, if somebody wanted to design a site that had a sort of cottage style layout to it, where you had individual buildings, and if it's appropriate on a site, we want people to have the flexibility to have that general design. And again, reminding the board that all of these will be required to go through site plan special permit review by the planning board, who would be looking at siting of buildings and, the way that the site is laid out in general anyway. So those are the only 2 changes, but this does require a new public hearing as it's deemed substantial enough of a change to the proposed local law. The planning board has reviewed this and sent these changes specifically and sent comments to the town board in support of the change. So the board should discuss these changes. I can go through the specific language if you'd like. Happy to answer any questions, but I think the next step would be to renotice this.
Eric, I think you should go through the changes, please.
Sure. So again, the local law would affect numerous sections of the town code. The first one, what you see here in black is the original wording of the code, and then in red are the changes pertaining to creating an owner-occupied unit, and green is only the one change that removes the requirement of multi-unit buildings. But basically starting out, we need to amend the section of the town code that provides definitions. We're providing a definition of affordable multiple residence, but now clarifying in it that additionally one dwelling unit on the premises may be designated as an owner-occupied unit for the property owner as set forth in the special permit standards, which are below and I'll get to. So then also proposed to be added here, and maybe they're a little bit out of order. I'll start with owner occupied unit. This is a definition that says a dwelling unit within an affordable multiple residence that is occupied by the legal owner of the property or by an immediate family member of the property owner, and which is designated as such on the approved site plan and within the recorded affordability covenant. Noting that for the affordable units, they will need to file a covenant over the property. It's a requirement to get approval for this land use. So then immediate family member is also defined. It's persons related by blood, marriage, or legal adoption, or other person with a verifiable dependent or caregiving relationship to the owner as approved by the Office of Housing. Where the property is owned by an entity other than a natural person, the designated owner occupant must be a natural person holding at least 50% ownership interest, and any family member occupancy shall be limited to relatives as defined above. Of such individual owner. So this also contemplates a situation where you have an LLC or a similar entity other than an individual person owning the property, and clarifies that they need to be the majority owner of the property in order to qualify as the owner. So moving along, then further in the code, the special, well, I should say I actually skipped over, but you could see under part 3, which is dimensional requirements, removing the requirement for multi-unit buildings. But going further along, again, under the topic of the owner-occupied unit, that also necessitated clarifying in some of the other sections of the code. These are all the specific special permit standards for this use that would be reviewed by the planning board. Any project would need to be found compliant with all of these in order to get an approval. So in the legal conditions of approval, we had talked about an affordability requirement that, it's a continuing condition of approval that the units be made affordable. We added the exception in there for the owner-occupied unit, and then clarified the rules regarding an owner-occupied unit, which says one dwelling unit on the premises may be designated as owner-occupied. This unit may be occupied by the property owner or an immediate family member of the property owner, and shall be exempt from the income qualification, rental, and affordability restrictions applicable to the other units under this section. The location and designation of the owner-occupied unit shall be identified on the approved site plan and in the recorded affordability covenant. The idea here being that one unit can be so designated, but it has to be identified right away during the site plan process and designated as such with appropriate legal documentation.
And again, Eric, just to be clear, this only applies to the owner-occupied unit.
That's correct. Yes, all the other units, which any unit in excess of the one that would be otherwise allowed as a matter of right as a single family residence under that zoning, all the other new units must be affordable housing units. They must have covenants and restrictions. They must meet all of the definition of an affordable housing unit and be for moderate income families like any other true affordable housing unit in town.
And they also must meet all dimensional regulations.
That's correct. Yeah, that's a carryover from when the law was heard originally, but in the dimensional requirements, again, the minimum lot area is an acre. Again, these are only properties that have been designated with the Affordable Housing Overlay District designation. We do not have many small properties currently that have the AHO designation. So there are not very many properties as we sit here today that would qualify for this use. But yes, all the other dimensional regulations, with the exception of limiting the units to be in multi-unit buildings, are staying the same from the previous time that this went to public hearing.
I just have one suggested revision, the affordable multiple residence definition. This would maintain consistency with the changes that Eric just mentioned. If we can just strike on the record, in the form of one or more multi-unit buildings, that's in the first sentence of the definition.
Ooh, okay.
So if you go to affordable multiple residence, a land use consisting of multiple residences, we would just strike in the form of one or more multi-unit buildings.
Okay.
Just to make it crystal clear that it could be a single family residence.
Brittany.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you're not requiring all of the units to be in multi-unit buildings, then conceivably one would not.
So yes, just a real life example. I own a house on an acre. And if I wanted to add a couple of cottages, I could. But I would still have to have all these conditions on it. I could still live in my house and I could add a couple of cottages.
If you had an AHO.
If I already had an AHO on my property. Affordable housing overlay, I want to try to stop using.
And that's an important distinction, especially because we were just talking about ADUs. ADUs are essentially permitted as a matter of right if you meet the criteria in every zoning district throughout the town. This is a use that is limited to the AHO and requires site plan review. So I just want to make that clear and remind everyone. I know the town board knows that, but.
Great.
So anyway, just going through the other specific changes to the code. Again, these are all related to just making sure that it's clear that you're permitted to have one owner-occupied unit. In the legal requirements section where it talks about the specific requirements and language in the affordability covenant that would be filed over the property to make sure that it is forever affordable. The first provision there would say, and this would be wording that would be in that document, notwithstanding the foregoing, one dwelling unit on the premises may be designated as an owner-occupied unit for the property owner or an immediate family member of the property owner. Such designated unit shall not be subject to the income qualifications or rental requirements otherwise applicable to affordable housing units under this chapter. The affordability covenant shall expressly identify the designated owner-occupied unit, if any, and shall provide that such unit is exempt from affordability and income qualification requirements, but remains subject to all other maintenance and occupancy conditions applicable to the property. So that's a clarification of the wording in the legal document that they'll be required to file. And then the last real change here is to clarify that because there is a requirement in here that on an annual basis or whenever tenancy is proposed to change in one of the units, that the property owner obtain a permit from the housing office. That is what we do with ADUs. That's what we do with apartments and commercial structures. We're proposing basically the same permitting process here of an annual permit. But the new change here is in addition to that section that clarifies that the owner-occupied unit is exempt from getting an annual permit. They're not subject to the affordability requirements. It's basically a unit that is removed from the affordability programmatic elements. So there's no reason to have the property owner apply for an annual permit, and we clarified that in the code.
Okay.
Well, yeah, mind if I go? Yeah. I just briefly, I'm as you know, I'm very supportive of this. I wish that we had gotten everything perfect the first time, but that's often not reality. And this is a response, these amendments, to public comment, which mostly were that this isn't very realistic. There's no appeal for anybody to do this. I think we have to recognize the reality that profitability is at odds with affordability. Just, if anybody thinks about that sort of by definition. But I think the change to allow individual to stay there, part of the appeal for ADUs in general is not only for the affordable unit, but also to help a person try to be able to stay here by getting some rent. And the same idea here, this can be thought of as sort of a larger scale ADU project or a small affordable housing development. But if there's a small house and a property with room to have, as Kate said, a structure in the back with apartments, I would hate to make them, tear down their house to put all the units in one building. And so that's where the allowing the units to be in separate buildings. And similarly, I would hate to disincentivize somebody from constructing affordable units because they couldn't then stay in the property that they already lived in. So those are the two significant changes here. I'm supportive of both. I think that that's the benefit of a public process, is that this is better legislation than the first time I proposed it. I also just want to point out, which has already been said, that this is not as of right. This would still only be able to take place in the Affordable Housing Overlay District. And as Eric said, there's very few properties right now within that district, that overlay district, that could take advantage of this. For anybody to do that, they would need to change the zone, which would require a public hearing, and then also receive a special permit from the planning board, which would be another public hearing. So this is offering a conceptual tool with many more steps for any, actual development of such a use. But I'm highly supportive, and I thank Eric for his work, Brittany, Ed Reale, and Mark Morgan Perez. I think this could be a great thing for affordable housing.
Yeah, likewise supportive here. Eric, I mean, how many properties are we talking about that would be eligible for this?
Well, any property that has the AHO would be eligible, but obviously most of those are already developed. Any that you had that is over 3 acres, it would make more sense to develop as a full-scale affordable housing development. But the sort of short answer to your question of AHO zone properties that are less than 3 acres, I believe we have 5, and I think all 4 of them are developed to the point where they just could not add this use. The 5th is one that's in Montauk that has existing improvements on it, but does have the yield for a few units. So basically, as we sit here today, there are no vacant properties that would really be candidates for this use.
Okay, thank you.
Are you good?
Support, yep.
Yeah, so, but I just to further that statement, the whole purpose of this is that really what determines it is that the minimum lot area should be an acre, right? But the idea that as we sit here right now, of course, there's nothing vacant, but the whole idea of this law is to be able to have people open to the opportunity to petition the board for an affordable housing overlay
That's correct.
on
Yeah.
any property that's an acre.
Yes, I mean, we would envision, our hope would be that this use, if adopted, would be utilized mainly in the periphery of downtown areas, smaller lots in neighborhoods that already have a denser development pattern, and that the town board would pursue looking at properties in such areas and adding the AHO, along with larger sort of standalone properties, because we do need more affordable housing. But, this is a use that is intended to be, and I think this is where you're going, for different properties than, larger than 3 acres, where we would be expecting a full-scale affordable housing development. This is meant to be 1 acre, between 1 acre and 3 acres, smaller properties. And the dimensional requirements are aimed at having the development, meet all of the zoning requirements if it were a single family residence, and to blend into the neighborhood and the existing character of the neighborhood. So.
Yeah, I just, I support the legislation, but I wanted to make clear that although we're saying right now there's really none, the point is that people can come and make application, because or else it doesn't seem like there's any reason why we should do this whatsoever. And that's not really what's in here is that there'll be 2 public hearings, but in terms of putting an affordable housing overlay on an acre property, there is that ability to make a petition to do that in any of our zones.
Yep.
I think that this is a good legislation in terms of offering an opportunity, yet it still maintains the important guardrails that I'm always talking about, particularly that it is for an acre or above. And as you said, it doesn't make any sense if you own 3 acres to do this. But also that you have to adhere to all the other zoning dimensional regulations, including gross floor area, which is an aggregate of all structures on the property. So if you were allowed to build, for example, 2,000, if you had a gross floor area aggregate on a particular piece of property that you were allowed to build 2,000 square foot residence, the cottage, the multi-units would not be able to, in aggregate, go beyond the 2,000 square foot. So I think that's very important in terms of preserving character of the neighborhood and resources. And the only other comment I'll make, as I beat this drum perpetually, is, and we just saw presentations on the funding that we need to spend to improve our water quality. Improving means that it's not in a good place to begin with, is also, as I said before, looking at the other side of the coin and talking about instituting sustainable sustainable landscaping practices, zero nitrogen use in fertilizer on these particular properties. And of course, I'd like to see that across town. But I also want to mention, because folks wrote to me, that the Sustainability Committee and CCOM both made comments at the original public hearing supporting that idea. And I don't think that that was mentioned, and those folks would like me to bring that back. So in general, I'm supportive. And I think it's a good time to go to public hearing.
Yeah. It's all been said. I think it's ready to go back. And it's already been to the planning board, so this can get noticed. Correct? And I'm guessing we can notice this on the 18th, but we probably can't hear it till the second meeting in January, right? Because zoning needs a month, more or less, for public notice, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Or no, Carol? It can go 2 weeks?
Only a specific property that needs the month.
Got it. Okay, so we can notice it for January 8th. Yeah, okay. All right, beautiful. Thank you, Eric.
Great, thank you all.
All right, so those are all our topics for today, so we can move on to liaison reports. Tom, you're up first.
Thank you. I apologize. This might go on a little bit because we didn't do anything last week. So if it's too long, it's my fault. Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee met last night. We were delighted to have Councilman Lees present for a discussion of the proposed playground project on the northeast area of the municipal parking lot, the field property up there. It's kind of moving forward. I think it's got a strong committee and we'll continue to keep the public updated on that as well. We also had Susan Harder from the Dark Sky International group. She's New York State chair of that group for a discussion of dark skies generally and also as it relates to the proposed lighting project for Main Street. She did voice concerns that she would like to see the town hire an independent lighting program designer to review the project based on the fact that, you know, there's concern that the existing lighting plan is actually not done by a lighting professional as much as it's done by the manufacturer of the lighting fixtures itself. So I will follow up with our engineers with regards to that. You know, also came up which department is truly responsible for town lighting projects. You know, a little bit of confusion as does that fall under planning? Does that fall under natural resources? You know, I don't think we specifically have a home for that at this point. Yeah, so I'll follow back up on that one with the different groups to see who
I believe
feels.
it's the planning
Yeah, okay.
department.
So some of the discussion there was about buildings and grounds. On there. The individual that Susan was talking about was Severo Christofich, who was in the capital projects manager in the buildings and grounds. And what they did is an energy audit of all of the town's light poles before going to LED, because we were being overcharged by the amounts of tens of thousands of dollars a year by LIPA. And that's
Right, and
that's
we got the money back.
we got. Nice. I mean, shocker sometimes getting it back from PSE&G. Overall, we received the money back. That's what she was talking about at that time, the gentleman. A lot of times with, and then they maintain the lighting districts, poles and such, but they do not overall designate the planning aspect on there. They maintain once the plan goes to the planning department, yourself being the shepherd, as he's said, or the quarterback, I think is what you mentioned.
Yeah,
last
exactly.
night. Sorry, I didn't want to.
You're good. You're good. One other piece that came up as we were discussing lighting generally is, you know, we passed recent changes to the lighting code, but residents raised concern that, you know, as they're reporting lighting violations to code enforcement, they're being told that it's not enforceable unless it's a neighboring property. That is not my understanding of the code. I'm going to have that discussion with the ordinance department to ensure we get clarification on that.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
I think
so-
that there's some kind of cross wires there.
Yeah, so we'll get that communication out clearly. We also had discussion around the further lane vista obstructions. Explanation was given as to why the town attorney's office is not directly pursuing this issue. Fundamentally, the property card is not law, if not in the easement or covenant. So it's not something we think we'd be successful in court for. With that said, you know, we're going to continue to monitor that and take more of a passive approach and work with the residents as they come forward to get that addressed. There was a question in that regard as to whether town had requested a title search on the property, and I will follow up with the town attorney's office on that. I also gave the group an update on the Cantwell Court project. The clearing's taken place there. We're looking at the New York State cross-mod program, and we just have a question right now regarding whether the clearing could have any impact on that cross-mod eligibility. The residents also had a question. There's been a temporary 25-mile-an-hour speed limit placed in the 20-mile-an-hour school zone there, and so it's causing some confusion. I'm reaching out to PD just to kind of, I think, most effectively get that moved away from the 20-mile-an-hour zone because that confusion is not there. And then lastly, we just had a discussion around committee membership. For those members currently who have not been to more than 3 meetings, I have directly emailed asking, do they wish to continue to be on? I have heard back from some, but if I have not heard back from committee members on that matter, I will not be reappointing them for the 2026 year. For IT operations remain stable, which I'm incredibly grateful for, especially after what we saw recently in Southold. The group's been continually resolving daily support user needs, onboarding new staff. They've got a 90% help desk resolution rate. System devices have been patched and updated. We've been putting out new hardware across the town. And our uptime of our town network is at 99.9%, which is an exceptional number. And we have increased firewall security going with that. We've recently undertaken some cybersecurity checks, and we continue to see daily blocking of suspicious logins, and we're doing a lot more of education with the staff awareness on that as well. We've done recent tests of our backups, and they've been verified. Cloud storage, interestingly, right now is about 60% usage, and we have recently conducted a successful recovery test as well, which is good to hear. Our server's healthy and stable. We have 2 capacity alerts. Email and collaboration tools are operating normally, and documentation upgrade planning is being continued. Database administration is being supported across the different town groups, along with file requests and assessment tax roll processes. And our GIS system, we continue to create numerous, I think 30 maps in the last week or so. And we're working on that new GIS program, which we'll be introducing to the town board early in the new year. We've had some minor issues with regard to disk space, login attempts, and video conferencing, but those have been resolved quickly. And just going into the new year, our forward planning includes our infrastructure upgrades, cybersecurity training, monitoring automation, GIS migration, and staff development initiatives. Human services, the Fall Prevention program, which takes place typically on Mondays at 1 p.m. And functional fitness Wednesdays at 11 p.m. Classes have been cancelled for this month. Upper body strength training is taking place on Friday at 1:30 p.m. Sorry, is not taking place on Friday. That has also been cancelled for this week. The East Hampton Garden Club will be visiting the centre on Monday, December 16th for their annual Holiday Centerpiece workshop. This is open to members of the Senior Nutrition Program. Please call Michelle at 631-324-6711 to reserve your spot. Students from Spring School will be visiting the centre to visit members with their annual holiday caroling concert on Tuesday, December the 16th. I look forward to attending that. The unduplicated congregate meal client count for the week of December 1st through December 5th is at 92, and the unduplicated count for the grab and go for that same week is at 79. Lastly, obviously, as with all departments, we're looking at capital requests for improvements to that building, and so we're reviewing those requests as they've come in. Fire Marshal's office is related today. For anyone visiting the Bucks Hill Preserve, you'll see we've got some clearing work going on there, addressing the vegetation obstructions for emergency services. That will be taking place over the next week. So please be careful if you are looking to go into that area, as it is a commercial working zone at this point. Sanitation. One thing to call out here that we have had complaints from residents of people going to the centers, taking away discarded items from the recycling center. Informally, this has been somewhat allowed with the understanding that people will follow basic social norms pertaining to parking and interaction with other users and safety, especially if children are in the vicinity. Those complaints we're hearing coming in are children running around unattended, So it's a commercial location, and to function requires all users to be sensible with how they operate there and socially acceptable with how they interact with other people there. So with those recent reports of people parking disabled spots long term, overly direct engagement with users for discarded goods, we don't want to have to discontinue that ability of people to do that. So please, do voluntarily comply with that. Lastly, I was reached out to by a resident as well as our local assemblyman regarding the issue of town residents who don't have a permanent registration on their car. It might be a lease or something else, and they're unable to use the center as a result. So there's questions as to, is that something we could look to change in the new year? Is there any kind of legislation that exists elsewhere to allow users in that case to do that? So I am exploring that if that is a possibility. Not quite lastly, sorry, special events and film, just to mention that on December 16th in our work session, we will have our year-end review, and we'll be recommending our 2026 code changes in that meeting as well. Anti-bus task force. We had a meeting with the chief of police revisiting the police reform reinvention plan following the 2021 town report. Chief Sala provided an overview of the final recommendations and actions taken by the department and to address those issues. The committee discussed the implementation of the recommendations and identified outstanding issues that may need to be addressed. The meeting was attended by several key members, including Ola and Router 27. Some follow-up items that came from that meeting was, the recommendation that key communications, especially relates to public safety, should be translated into Spanish. That's something that's in the original recommendation and the committee would like to see. The chief also mentioned that discussions would take place with the supervisor regarding a possible committee for January to continue police reform oversight. We also had a discussion with the review and complaint oversight procedure with the town attorneys. Then lastly, we have scheduled January and February training sessions with police on adolescent mental health and evolving programs. And the final request was for me to, in my next fire commissioners meeting, to discuss with the fire commissioners, any potential interactions they might have with immigration groups that's taken place elsewhere on the island, and they wanted to get clarification as to how commissioners would be responding to that. The Arts Council Committee, it's a while back, but on November 21st, we had a fantastic community networking event at Town Hall. We had 4 local artists: Joanne Roberts, a filmmaker, producer of the recent documentary Bonicas, I apologize. She talked about the process of filmmaking and film production. We also had Maria Keolani, who's a local artist, the daughter of Dr. Dempsey, and she talked about her creative process, specifically in painting, and did a working live demonstration. We had Meg Gibson, an actor, director, and producer, who talked about the process of acting and theater, and did a character reading. And then lastly, we had Carlos Barrios and his band, who's a local artisan guitar maker and musician, who his group did a wonderful performance and did a clip of the process of making guitars. It was a really outstanding event, and to see how incredible the local art scene is out here was invigorating, truthfully. And it was also wonderful use of Town Hall. We rearranged the entire room sideways, and it was one of the best events I've been to out here. It was greatly enjoyed. So thank you to the committee for helping coordinate that. The Wildlife Management Advisory Committee. I've been outreached by some local organizations just to raise awareness with the distemper outbreak in the local raccoon population. Just to advise people that canine distemper is not contagious to humans or cats, but dogs can catch it if not properly vaccinated. In adult raccoons, it's almost always fatal. Signs of distemper in raccoons: if you see a raccoon displaying any of these symptoms, do not approach it. If they're active during the daytime, if they're weepy or mucus-filled eyes and nose, if they're stumbling, walking in circles, or moving very slowly or acting disorientated, or if they lose their fear of humans. How to help stop the spread. Do not leave unattended water bowls outside shops, restaurants, or other public spaces. Feed your pets indoors. If feeding outdoors, remove bowls immediately after eating. Wash outdoor pet bowls with 10% bleach solution, rinse thoroughly. Bring dog bedding, cat houses, and other pet items inside from outdoors. Keep compost bins sealed and inaccessible to raccoons. If you see a sick or strange acting raccoon, keep your pets and children away. Do not attempt to help or move the animal. Call your local animal control or the Evelyn Alexander Wildlife Rescue Center. Their number is 631-728-WILD, which is 9453. And just with regards to rabies, because this did come up, there have been no recent rabies cases in raccoons in eastern Suffolk County. However, if anyone is bitten by a raccoon, call Suffolk County Health Department 631-852-5500 and go to the nearest emergency room for rabies treatment. The reason for mentioning this is although we don't have it in eastern Suffolk County, there are 17 cases of rabies being reported in western Suffolk County, so there is a potential for it to spread out here.
What about drunk raccoons?
Drunk raccoons, I saw that. It was amazing. Did anyone else see that? It was a wonderful
Yes.
story.
Hey,
There you
come
go.
on.
Living his best life, right?
Another issue.
Yeah. Business Advisory Committee just report that, fall business for November was generally very quiet. However, the Thanksgiving weekend saw a great turnout. Something my colleague David, at least, and I discussed during the turkey trot out here is, just a way to continue to promote the East End as a destination for people to spend Thanksgiving out. We have numerous hotels with fantastic rates at this time of year, so the ability for families to come out and have a fantastic weekend in this incredible environment at a very reasonable cost is there. So something that I think I'm going to try and work with the chambers on next year to kind of continue to promote as we move forward. Just also an update that the Greater East Hampton Chamber of Commerce is having their holiday mixer on Thursday, December the 11th at 4:30 p.m. That is everything I'm going to do for now. All right, guys, thank you.
The turkey trot, sorry, I apologize. I want to thank everyone, and particularly the Recreation Department, everyone that showed up for the East Hampton sponsored Turkey Trot and Montauk on Thanksgiving Day. There was a record number of participants at 1,300. Tom, you got your personal best. Ian?
Yep.
Yep, got your personal best.
I did it twice.
You
My-
did
my
it twice?
tradition. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, why the turkey trot is so special is that the proceeds are split between the food pantries within the town of East Hampton. It was a lovely day out there in Montauk also then too. The supervisor was there to greet and blow the whistle, if you want to say on it. Start
My
the
first time
race.
with a megaphone.
Start the race.
Won't be my last.
I also thought it was great in which 1,300 people came and that pretty much it started almost on time, but also the modernization of the recreation department that everyone has to sign up in advance and too. So that's proving it's working really well. I want to give everyone an update on the Ditch Dune project. That dune project is moving forward and probably be completed within the next 2 days. They're finalizing sand placements today and tomorrow. We will have some extra hundreds of yards of sand left over from the project that we paid for. So the request and what I'm recommending is that we're going to put 3 placements of sand piles of approximately 300 to 400 cubic yards in each one of the ditch parking areas. Why? First of all, the taxpayers have paid for it. It's theirs within the contract, but we will use it to either plug the gaps in a case of storms, or in the springtime, use it to infill if we need to, if the beach or the current dune systems being put there will be interacting with the water. So that will be also happening and then removed within time frame by the summer season. I've also contacted some of the vendors, let them know about the situation, but that's what's happening in that area. Next steps there in the coming weeks, it will be fencing and sand plug placement. So that is upcoming. And then 2, Kate, thank you for your leadership on that and getting us there almost complete. I want to let everyone know there's 2 demolitions projects on CPF or on municipal properties. One of them was happening on Abraham's Path that is almost complete. The other one again is upcoming at 20 Fireplace Road, where the new farmers want and where the new farmers are going in through an RFA, which was approved a couple of weeks ago. That'll be happening in the upcoming weeks. As far as the Montauk Harbor dredging project, the dredge restarted up through mechanical issues. They are still moving forward and still on track to be complete by middle January. If there's any changes to that, as far as that dredging window, the Army Corps of Engineers will work together with the state DEC through permitting processes as we get closer to that time frame again then too. Moving that back over to the Army Corps of Engineers, we just did receive information that part of the FEME, which is the FIMP project, FIMP Fire Island Montauk Project, FEME Fire Island Merchants Inlet, which provided 450,000 cubic yards of sand in downtown Montauk 2 years ago. We were finally, the RFP was finally awarded for the removal of the upland crossovers, the wood crossovers that we've discussed. I don't have any time frame on that, but there will be updated by the DEC when there will be a kickoff to that construction schedule. I'll give you more information on there. I don't think it's going to take too long, but overall, we've been pressing on that. The Fisheries Advisory Committee met last week on there. The FAC met. We discussed about the Suffolk County's working waterfront legislation in which the town of East Hampton has supported on there. And thank you to legislator Ann Welker at the county. Again, this is this is a wonderful form of legislation in which it defines what a working waterfront is in Suffolk County and also puts aside funding, capital funding for protection of working waterfronts. Hence, if it was pack houses, marinas, slip spaces, ice houses also. Part of that is that the Suffolk County requested 2 names from the town of East Hampton that would be on that committee. We have submitted those. But also what it's done is reinvigorate the FAC to look at our working waterfront analysis for properties within the town of East Hampton. That's something that's been slowly being worked on, but we're going to work on that in the first quarter of 2026. Other discussions went on to the Montauk bottomlands on there, which we're moving forward on then too, still, with leases in some of the bottomlands that have been out there for decades. The last discussion point that was there was about legislation that is up in Albany about horseshoe crabs. The FAC does not support that legislation, but would like to see more scientific means and baselines out there about the horseshoe populations moving forward. Also, last week, the Montauk CAC met. There was a nice discussion there about e-bikes and moving forward about a potential task force for e-bikes that would be individuals that might be from the police department, other agencies, there was the school district and such. There was also conversation during this meeting in that what happened is that the police have actually been here and discussed to the Montauk CAC in the past about e-bikes, and they'll continue to do so and bring back in the future. But again, it's showing there's a constant conflict with e-bikes moving ahead, and we can discuss hopefully in advance of the 2026 summer season. Also with the Montauk CAC, let everyone know there will be no January meeting this next month on there, so the next meeting will be in February on there. Let me see here. I wanted to throw out a happy birthday to Tim Garneau. All right, moving on. I also want to thank town staff for all the holiday displays. Also within the town of East Hampton, work with the Montauk CAC. Montauk Chamber of Commerce out here, town staff, for putting up all town displays. Thank you so very much for getting that done also. Lastly, on November 27th of this calendar year, Robert A.M. Stern passed away. Robert A.M. Stern was a longtime East Hampton resident and architect of the East Hampton Town Hall complex. I would love to know what he was thinking that same week. That's all I have.
Thank you, David. Kate?
That last one's tough to follow, David. Yes, the Litter Action Committee met. Actually, what we had is a meeting to acknowledge the accomplishments and the tremendous amount of volunteerism from Tina Plessette, who will be moving from East Hampton to be closer to grown children in the future. She has been a tremendous value to our community for all the committees that she's been on, including the Spring CAC, and certainly the formation and the continuing work of the Litter Action Committee. Tina has an incredible history with her husband, Max, of service to people in need, spending many years on First Peoples reservation, giving medical care, et cetera, to folks. And Tina will be missed, but we wish her every wonderful thing in the future. I wanted to, the Wayne-Scott CAC, a meeting that was supposed to be held last Saturday is postponed potentially to next Saturday. However, this morning I did meet with the members of the Wayne-Scott CAC Airport Subcommittee. It was a very good meeting. I met with Hersey Eggington and Mark Franz and Carolyn Logan Gluck. They had some recommendations. They're going to be making meetings with individual town board members to discuss two things. One is two immediate things. One is an updated and modernized data collection resource for the residents of the town in terms of one of these types of dashboards that we see that can create data instantaneously for residents to understand the operations at the airport better and for our enlightenment as well. And the other one is a discussion, they'd like to see us have a discussion of restarting the SECRA process on the airport. Those were the two recommendations from that group that I received this morning. And as I said, they will be reaching out to everyone on the town board. One more thing that I'm going to talk about today is that we're at the end of December and the town has an organizational meeting in the beginning of January. And I want to put an outreach out to folks to reach out to us about our numerous town committees that you can join as a citizen. No requirements other than you do live here. There's so many different types of committees that you can engage in to become engaged in town affairs, and I'd like folks to really consider reaching out to us. I know we're going to put out more information on what types of committees and even the regulatory boards that we have in town. Participation is vital, and we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in serving on any of these committees. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Kate. Ian?
Yes, the Property Management Committee meeting, which is on the calendar for tomorrow, is canceled. And just to say something about that, that committee was never intended to meet monthly. It's as needed. I did post the calendar on the town website based on public interest, but everybody should check in, the day or two before those meetings just to see if it's happening. It's on an as-need basis based on the respect for the time of the committee members involved. Several of their recommendations are currently moving forward. I think the most notable one is the Osborne management plan, and that'll come back before the board soon. There were some public comments at the first time that was aired, and there'll be some revisions. Ag Advisory, which was originally scheduled for this Thursday, is also canceled. That meets more regularly than the Property Management Committee, but still is sporadic. So again, I encourage the public to always check the website, and it'll be updated by the week of those meetings. There's holiday concerts and other conflicts where many members weren't going to be able to attend. And also, there's site plan recommendations that we spoke about at the last meeting. We didn't have time to have a full board discussion because of a very busy agenda. We'll revisit that next week, and it makes sense for them to wait to address our comments after we make them. Spring CAC last month met, and there was a unanimous recommendation to this board that we revisit the Springs Park Management Plan, just to talk about, and I support that. I think the details, I hope to bring that back before a work session, and we'll talk about the specific details there. On a related note, I've been working with the Land Management Department and Natural Resources on a potential revegetation or restoration plan for the area where we removed invasive species. That was a project that took place in the springtime. I always said it was a test case and we'd see what the next step. I do think it's appropriate to do some restoration, revegetation. And again, I've been working with town staff on that. I mentioned that it's a separate thing from the Spring CAC recommendation, but since they're recommending look at the management plan, it's an appropriate time to discuss the possibility of that restoration. Spring CAC will meet next Tuesday at 6:30 at Ashwag Hall. Don't know the agenda yet, but I'll inform the public next Tuesday at our work session. Community Housing Advisory Board meets next Wednesday at 5 p.m. at the Planning Department at 300 Panago Place. Open to the public. Again, that agenda is not posted yet, but everybody is welcome. And then I just want to reiterate what Kate said. I was going to say the same thing, that committees and boards, anybody interested, I think recently we've had, it was a full audience today. We've had a lot of public comment, and I think that only makes government better. It makes the process better. It's incredibly important. Comments matter, participation matters. And so I really encourage people to reach out who care about the town, who have thoughts about, what we could be doing better, and participate. And that goes to people who don't think of themselves as somebody who would participate in government or wouldn't be appointed to something. I think young people, people from different backgrounds would be very, very welcome to participate in the process. So wholeheartedly agree with Kate on that, and I know the rest of the board does as well.
Great, thank you. So we held a public hearing on Thursday, November 20th. It was for stop signs in the Hands Creek Farm neighborhood. So I'm passing out it was the memo that we had for the work session with the map. We had the president of Hands Creek Farm at the public hearing. They were supportive of the stop signs on Cordy Circle as it intersects Cordy Court. He did ask to see if his concern was that when folks were heading on Cordy Court and they got to Timberline Road, they're cutting that left turn onto Timberline, which takes you out to Hands Creek. And what I've talked internally about, we keep the stop sign the way we noticed it. When you put a stop sign in, we put the white line. I think once that white line is on the asphalt, folks making that left turn will see where the middle of the road is, and that should help address. But, speaking to the chief, speaking to Steve Lynch, it really doesn't make sense to put the stop sign. It's not the best planning, engineering, putting it where it was requested. I think having it where we heard it, where it is at the Timberline intersection of Cordy Court, I think that's gonna, obviously you're stopping there anyway. Intuitively, you would never just pull out because could be cars coming from the north. So, but I guess long story short, I'm looking to put this on for adoption for these 3 stop signs at the December 18th town board meeting. Kate mentioned the organization meeting. I just want to let folks know the key dates in 2026, at least for January. The organizational meeting is Tuesday, January 6th at 11 a.m. And then we start our regular schedule. That Thursday, January 8th at 6 p.m. will be our evening meeting. And then our first work session will be Tuesday, January 13th here in Montauk. And both Kate and Ian spoke about asking folks in the community to consider serving on town advisory boards and appointed boards. We have a website or an email address set up. It's serve@ehamptonny.gov. It's going up on social media today. And so we're inviting the public. When that email comes in, it goes to all 5 board members. Folks will express interest. If you're interested in an appointed board, we'll come back and ask you to submit some kind of statement or, resume, because that's a much more detailed assignment than being on an advisory board, such as a CAC or any of our other committees that we are liaison to. So that's what I've got for my liaison report. David, I think you have the first resolution.
My pleasure to offer Resolution 2025-1626. It's a accept a proposal for construction services for the Westlake Stormwater abatement installation. This is from a proposal dated from LK McLean Associates from December 29th, 2025. For construction inspection services for $27,000 and construction admin services in the amount of $5,000 for a total of $32,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 1627, which is the approval of special events for December 2025 and January 2026. talking about it now, it's coming. Resolve that the following special event permits are hereby approved. The first one is Amber Wave Farms, Deck the Farm, Community Fundraiser and Holiday Gathering at 367 Main Street, Amagansett. It's Friday, 12/12, 4 to 7, and setup will be on Thursday. There is a rain date, which would be Saturday, 12/13. Inlet Seafood is hosting their holiday boat parade viewing party at 541 East Lake Drive, Saturday, 12/13, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And lastly, the Sag Harbor Community Food Pantry will be hosting the Wainscott Polar Bear Plunge, the annual fundraiser at Beach Lane Beach in Wainscott, Thursday, January 1st from 2 to 3 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2025-1628 is a budget modification for the airport for expenses related to fuel sales. We're increasing the sale of aviation fuel in the amount of $138,000 and increasing the expenditure line in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
1629 is a budget modification for the purchasing department for the purchase of office equipment. We're decreasing the MTA tax in the amount of $416 and increasing office equipment in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
1630 is a budget modification for the town attorney's office for the A fund for the payment of prior year Westlaw invoices. We're decreasing longevity in the amount of $1,827 and increasing online law services in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So those are all of our resolutions for today. Do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for CPF, leases, real estate, and advice of counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, and you are off